gentlemen, because this is huge. It's very, very important. You cannot expect the New York Slimes and the Washington Post and CNN and Jeffrey Toobin, who is illiterate in history and law as far as I'm concerned. You cannot expect any of these people to tell you the truth, and you cannot expect them to take the time to educate themselves. They just don't give a damn. So stick with me. I know what I'm doing. I want to make sure all his lawyers get it, the ones that go on TV and explain this stuff. The idea that all Sunday long, the question was, the president been investigated for obstruction? We weren't notified of the obstruction. Hey, dummies! President can't be indicted. He's being investigated for obstruction. What's the basis for the investigation? Again, apart from the obstruction arguments, which are plentiful, and 100% on the president's side, apart from that, besides that, what the hell is a roving prosecutor doing, if he's doing it at all, investigating a president of the United States? Now, he's free to investigate the surrogates. And let me ask you this question before I go on with this. Jim Comey, a professional prosecutor for 30 years, Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Director of the FBI, a United States Attorney, an Assistant United States Attorney. He says, I leaked the information on the memo about Trump. I hope you can see past this investigation, or whatever it was, related to Michael Flynn. Because he says, I wanted the appointment of a special counsel. To do what, Comey? To investigate the president for obstruction? The president can't be charged with obstruction while he's president of the United States. Another one who's illiterate on the law and the Constitution. For the last many months, we've been operating under the left's illusion that they're going to get Trump. Yes, they're criminalizing the politics. Yes, they're dragging down this administration. But listen to the debates. Listen to how they change. Look how they pivot. They can't touch Trump from a criminal perspective while he's president of the United States. Let's go on. United States versus Nixon, Nixon versus Fitzgerald, and Clinton versus Jones are consistent with the department's analysis and conclusion in 1973. The cases embrace the methodology applied in the OLC memorandum of constitutional balancing. That is, they balance the constitutional interests underlying a claim of presidential immunity against the governmental interests in rejecting that immunity. Full imposition of a criminal sentence of incarceration, which would make it physically impossible for the president to carry out his duties. B, the public stigma and opprobrium occasioned by the initiation of criminal proceedings, which could compromise the president's ability to fulfill his constitutionally contemplated leadership role with respect to foreign and domestic affairs. And C, the mental and physical burdens of assisting in the preparation of a defense for the various stages of the criminal proceedings, which might severely hamper the president's performance of his official duties. In assessing the significance of these burdens, two features of our constitutional system must be kept in mind, and they conclude on all three. And for those reasons, and more, a president is not to be indicted. The Constitution specifies a mechanism for accusing a sitting president of wrongdoing and removing him from office. We know what that is. That is Article 2, Section 4, impeachment. Second, the president occupies a unique position in the constitutional scheme. Moreover, the practical demands on the individual who occupies the office of the president, particularly in the modern era, are enormous. And they conclude this way. Thus, the constitutional concern is not merely that any particular indictment in criminal prosecution of a sitting president would unduly impinge upon his ability to perform his public duties. A more general concern is that permitting such criminal process against a sitting president would affect the underlying dynamics of our governmental system in profound and necessarily unpredictable ways by shifting an awesome power to unelected persons lacking an explicit constitutional role. They mean prosecutors and juries vis-a-vis the president, given the potentially momentous political consequences for the nation at stake. Incompatibility between the ordinary application of the criminal process and the office of the president. For these reasons, we believe the Constitution requires recognition of a presidential immunity from indictment and criminal prosecution while the president is in office. I am posting this memorandum. It's the official Department of Justice memorandum, October 16, 2000, written by Democrats, and it's correct from their perspective. I would dispute some of it. It doesn't matter if I dispute some of it. It simply doesn't matter. This is the position of the Department of Justice. It's been the position of the Department of Justice for almost half a century. So why is Mr. Mueller contemplating an obstruction investigation against the President of the United States? By the way, without any basis whatsoever, again, put it aside, the fact of the matter is, which applies to all prosecutors, the FBI, all of them, cannot be charged and cannot even waste his time being drawn into the criminal process because he has the job of looking out for the American people as commander-in-chief as well as his other responsibilities. He is the Article I executive branch. It's him. Exposed the insanity that's gone over the last few months. And history writers who are objective and good will look back on this period and write exactly as I'm saying, the insanity of it. Let's take the next step. That doesn't mean that the Democrats, a rogue special counsel, a rogue former FBI director, a rogue media, won't try to do with this president what they can't do to him criminally. That means character assassinate him, smear him, kneecap his ability to function outside of the criminal justice system, outside of a courtroom. Let me tell you what the media now are doing, what the Democrats are doing, and what all these other people are doing. They are endangering this country. It is one thing to have legitimate disagreements with this president. It is one thing to take this president on when it comes to issues, substantive issues. It's one thing to use the processes of the government, the political processes of the government, the institutionalized processes of the government in a traditional way to try and stop a president, slow a president, obstruct a president, support a president. But it's quite another, day in and day out, to claim that the President of the United States is a criminal and to try unconstitutionally to criminalize his policies and to criminalize what he has done for the simple purpose of trying to drive him out of office. That's a whole other thing. And that's precisely what's going on here. Precisely what's going on here. And these hosts on these Sunday shows are ignoramuses. They're ignoramuses. But they're liberals, so they don't care. One and the same. All these people yakking it up on TV and radio don't even know what they're talking about. But now you know more than any of them. Any law professor who's come on TV, who's written an op-ed, any phony journalist who's been on TV or writes for the Washington Compost or the New York Slimes, you now know more, and I want you to spread the word, America. I want you to spread the word. That it's been the position of the Department of Justice for almost half a century under Democrats and Republicans. The last memo written by Democrats. That the president cannot be indicted. So why are they investigating him? In fact, they are. Why are we having this debate? Because Hillary Clinton triggered it? Because Nancy Pelosi says so? Because Chuck Schumer says so? Because CNN has a moron named Jeff Toobin, who's a legal analyst? And all the other phony legal analysts out there, and two-bit nothing professors